students. Today's lecture we are learning a new topic, ROM. I said to you previous lectures, primary memory that is dividing two types, RAM and ROM. I said to you that RAM is a random access memory that is dividing two types, DRAM, SRAM, dynamic RAM and static RAM. Today we are continuing with the same topic, primary memory, ROM. ROM and what are the types of the ROMs. ROM is nothing but read-only memory. I said to you in previous lectures when I am explaining the primary memory and memory, what is memory? Whatever the data we are having, we are storing in a particular place. In a particular place that is called a memory. Means some example, we are all humans now. We are having a brain. Means whatever in our daily life, what we are doing, okay, what we are listening, that all information we are stored in a memory, in a brain. Same just like that. Computer is also having the memory, and in our mobile phones also we are storing some files, some images, some videos, and so we are downloading some apps. Okay, in a memory means the computer. Whatever the memory means is nothing but we are storing the data or information. Memory, okay, storing device. That is divided two types, primary and secondary. In primary is again dividing two types, RAM and ROM. As said to you in previous lecture, RAM is dividing two types, DRAM and SRAM. And what about the ROM? ROM is also dividing the types PROM, EPROM, two types. Now today's lecture we are learning what is ROM and what is the use of the ROM and what is the uses of this PROM and EPROM. Shall I start this lecture? ROM, read only memory. What it means ROM? Read only memory. We all know in the RAM, random access memory, is having two operations, read and write. We can write anything and we can read anything with the help of the RAM. But in this ROM, we can read only. Here we are having only read operation. Okay, read permission, read only memory in this ROM. It can only be read by the processor. Only be read by the processor. Data to be stored, written during the manufacturing phase means the data, whatever the data we are storing, the data to be stored, written during the manufacturing phase. We can't do any changes in a ROM. Whatever the data we are stored in a ROM, we can't do. After storing the data, we can't do any changes, any modifications. And contain the data that does not need to be altered. Does not need to be altered. It's slower and hence cheaper than the RAM. Okay? It is slower and hence cheaper than the RAM. The technologies are available to programs ROM. Technologies are available to both types of the ROMs. One is PROM and EPROM. What is PROM? Programmable read-only memory. In this, it can be programmed using a special hardware devices called a PROM. Special hardware devices called a PROM. And what about this EPROM? EPROM, erasable programmable read-only memory. Here, it can be erased. Okay, name itself, we are seeing name itself that erasable programmable read-only memory. It can be erased and then programmed using special electrical signals. EPROM or UV EPROM. UV rays EPROM. Small piece of high-speed volatile memory available to the processor for fast processing. Here in this EPROM, erasable programmable read-only memory, small piece of high-speed volatile memory is available. Okay, volatile memory is available, and may be reserved portion of main memory. Okay, reserved portion of main memory, another chip on CPU central processing unit, or an independent high-speed SRAM, static random access memory, and a process of keeping some data and instructions in cache memory for faster access is a caching. Here, the cache memory, the data and instructions in a cache memory for faster accessing is caching, and whenever the processor needs any piece of data as instructions, it checks the cache first. Whatever the data we are storing in this ROM read-only operation, we are having whatever the data we are inserted or stored, the data we can't do any changes after storing in a RAM. We just read the data. We can't do any updations, any modifications, any manufacturing. Okay, in manufacturing phase, here you see the data to be stored to return during the manufacturing phase. During the manufacturing phase, here process of keeping some data and instructions is in a cache memory for faster access is caching, and whenever the processor needs any piece of data as instructions, it checks the cache first. Okay, whatever the data you are stored in a memory, and whatever you are instructed to the data, that instructions first checks in a cache memory, and finding data or instructions in cache is called a cache hit. What it means, ma'am? Whatever the data and instructions is finding in a memory to store in a memory, that is cache. Okay, accessing faster access is caching, and whenever the processor needs any piece of data as instructions, it checks the cache first and finding the data or instruction. Okay, you have stored some data, some information. Okay, where you are storing the data, you are instructing to the computer now. Means finding the data or instruction in cache is called a cache hit. You have to understood this lecture, ROM and its types. ROM is nothing but read-only memory. We are storing the data permanently. For example, we can't do any changes after the storing the data in our ROM. Okay, we can't do any modifications. We are just read the data. Whatever we have stored that information, we just read the data. We can't do any modifications. We can't do any updations to the existing data. We just having a read okay, we just having to read a permission, and RAM, random access memory, we can do any modifications to the existing data, updations to the existing data, and we can also write the data, read the data. Means in RAM you are having two operations, read and write, but ROM only read operation. I hope you understand this lecture. ROM.